Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week we're talking about bad or less efficient. Stuff that I learned when I got to spend some time with one of my teams this past week. So last Thursday, I was in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and I had the whole day, all day long, to work with their women's soccer team. We work all year long, but this was a great opportunity to do interactive things and talk about resets and mindsets and how all of these things affect our performance and show it in real time. But here's the thing. The whole time that I was there and all the silly games that we played and all the great examples of how important it is to have a reset and how important it is to take feedback and what kind of feedback we really need to improve. Aside from all of those things, what hit me the hardest in the hours and hours that we spent together was watching them practice. As I was watching them practice, I was like, oh my gosh, it just hit me. So they're playing this little warm-up game in small grids. So they've got 4 grids and certain amount of kids in each grid. And everybody has to touch the ball or touch the line and do all these things before they can move to the next grid, or they have to try to catch the group in the next grid. And what I was thinking, and the ball was moving all over the place. It was fast. But I'm like, every pass and every touch wasn't perfect. It's not going to be. But instead of them hanging their head and thinking, oh my gosh, that sucked, or whatever they think, they just kept moving on. They didn't have time to label things as a mistake. They just touched and moved forward, touched, moved forward, touched, talk, move. Now, granted, there's no consequence really if you make a bad pass or it's a bad touch or you touch with the wrong foot according to the rules of the warm-up. But the deal is that they weren't labeling every move they made as awesome or crappy. And it made me really think of the great book that I'm sure most of you have read, The Inner Game of Tennis, where Tim Gallwey talks about how we label things as good or bad and how that affects our performance. We know that when the language we use makes a difference. We talked about that last week. We talked about that with my dad's situation. And in every situation that we're in, we get to choose our words, and the words we choose affect us, and they affect our performance. A shot, according to Gallwey, and according to us, obviously, too, a shot that lands inside the lines is good, and a shot that lands outside the line is bad. And then we add all kinds of meaning to that, and we go on and on and on with it, and it turns us into judges. And judgment distracts us from what's coming next. It builds frustration. We get totally off kilter, and we start to think about, oh my gosh, it went out. Well, he says that the ball doesn't care if it's in or out. It just is. It just is. And I like to use the example when I'm talking to teams or individuals of like this. It's you, your opponent, and the official. Okay, we've got 3 different groups in a contest. The ball goes out, whether it's in soccer, football, basketball, tennis, anything. Right? The ball goes outside of the boundaries of the field, whether that's a fair or foul, whatever, in or out of bounds. The ball goes out when you're on offense and you think it's bad. Okay? Your opponent loves it. They love it. The ball's out. They sometimes get it back in volleyball, right? You get the ball back when it goes out for your opponent. That is awesome. The official does not care. It's either in or it's out, and it is what it is. We've got one shot, one whatever, and 3 different meanings. The ball doesn't care where it is. The game really doesn't care where it is. What matters is what we do next. Whether it went in or out, the ball doesn't care. The official doesn't care. You and your opponent think it's different. It isn't oh my gosh, that ball is out and everybody in the world thinks it's horrible. No, it depends on the meaning that we put to it. The past doesn't know it's terrible, right? It just knows where it went. What matters is what we do next. And what we do next really is directly connected to how we're talking or thinking about what just happened. So as I'm watching this, and they're just going on, and they're communicating, lots of people, small space, lots of touches, lots of passes. Some are efficient, some are not. I was thinking, gosh, what if we started talking about it like that? It wasn't a mistake, it was less efficient. Now you're thinking, okay, euphemism, right? We're just trying to make everything seem better. We're not calling people out. We're not being accountable. That's not true, right? It's labeling less efficient. When we say it's less efficient, we're labeling, we are saying, right? We're acknowledging, I guess I should say, that there is a gap, but there's no emotional baggage. It's not bad, which brings emotional baggage. But we're acknowledging the fact, okay, that wasn't perfect. But then it sort of begs the question of, what do I need to do to be more efficient? When we think about whether we're trying really to be like, okay, no big deal, it's not about that. It's trying to take the emotion out of things. How can we just take the emotion out of something we don't particularly like or what wasn't our intention, and just say, okay, it is what it is. In that game, it may not have been the most efficient pass, but it moved us to the next action. And so if we can move to the next action, then we get to decide how we're going to approach that. And maybe we can be more efficient on that one, but we're not going to be more efficient if we're still stuck on the one that was a mistake or bad or whatever we want to call it. Why I say it's not a euphemism? Because science backs it up. Let's talk about this, right? Research on error management training shows that people who view mistakes as information rather than failure learn faster and adapt more efficiently. Sounds great, right? Other studies on post-error slowing, so what happens after you do it, reveal that dwelling on errors, when we do, our body literally slows down, right? We literally slow down on the next action without any real improvement in accuracy. So when we look at things as mistakes, after that action, we slow down. Or when we think about error management training, when we can label it as something that other than failure, we are going to move faster. Isn't that what we want? We spent time in the gym working on reset, right? That was the fun thing in the little drill that we did to show them that, hey, if we can reset faster and we don't get stuck on that mistake when they dropped whatever implement we had in the game, we are going to give ourselves a better chance to win. Even more research on reappraisal, right, which is the act of reframing a situation in real time. This demonstrates that when we shift how we interpret whatever it is, the moment, our performance improves. Instead of saying that was terrible, we can say that wasn't ideal, right? We know it wasn't ideal, and that doesn't mean we love to make mistakes. It doesn't mean we're not trying to get better. It doesn't mean that we're trying to be soft. It doesn't mean that it was rose-colored glasses. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't what we wanted. But we kept the play alive, and if we keep the play, even if the play's dead, I'm ready for the next one. Because that's really all I can control at this point. Now, if we keep making the same mistake, then we need to be more conscientious. We need to be more focused. We need to have more information. We need to get better feedback. We need to practice more, whatever it is. But usually the mistake happens before the mistake, and it's because we weren't focused, or it's because we were pissed off, or it's because whatever. And if we can reappraise in real time and say, okay, that wasn't ideal, but I kept it alive, boom, boom, boom. Now I'm moving forward instead of staying stuck or actually going backwards. This kind of framing moves us into solutions mode instead of getting stuck mode and frustration mode, and we don't need to stay there. But how can we make the shift? So here's a cool little drill that we could all do. So we can run a simple little sequence, whether that's passing, free throws, swings, whatever it might be, even putts. And instead of judging after each rep, athletes have to decide what happened in neutral and factual terms, right? It was high. I was off my heel. My front side flew out, right? I was short of the target. Instead of good or bad, we're talking about factual things. I overthrew it. Okay. Well, that gives us some feedback to say, I know what I need to do to keep from overthrowing. So I think about that instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, I missed her, she's going to be ticked, and coach is going to pull me out, and all the other cascade of thoughts that come through when we let ourselves slip into frustration. It was less efficient because, boom, 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 of factual, neutral statements. And next time I will, boom, 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 neutral, factual improvements. Seems so simple. I know it's not that simple, but it strips away the judgment. It keeps our attention. It helps us improve, and it speeds us up. All the things in the great, great book of The Inner Game of Tennis. We can run it in a drill, no problem. Imagine the time and energy we would save if we could just change our frame. Again, it's not trying to avoid accountability. It's not pretending like we don't make mistakes. It's not being like, you're okay, you're okay. I hate that more than anything. You probably do too. It is, that wasn't efficient. Not what, there was this mistake. It wasn't, what can I do to make it more efficient? Instead of that was bad. Because when we hear bad from the time that we're little, we get smaller. We get slower. We make decisions more slowly. We second guess. We start to think. And all those things are not good for our performance. So here's the challenge this week. Catch yourself in those moments where you start to judge. We do it all the time. We don't even realize it. Replace it with less efficient or something that makes sense to you. See how it changes your next move. See how it changes your focus. See how it changes your energy. Just see what it does. Because when we stop labeling things as good or bad, we strip the emotion out of it. And the game doesn't care how we feel. The game doesn't care where the ball is. What we need to care about in the game is where we are, and we need to be where our feet are playing this play, whatever it is. It keeps our focus where it belongs. So I am very grateful to Elizabethtown Women's Soccer. I had a great time. What a beautiful campus. They reminded me that we can change the way that we frame things and still keep moving forward, because they were doing it time and time and time again. The game doesn't wait, and we don't need to either. So thank you, Blue Jays, for the awesome opportunity. Headed to Albion to work with our softball team this weekend, and then back out to Oberlin to work with their football team. I'd love to work with yours. Get me on campus, get me on Zoom, however you want to do it. But this kind of stuff can help us move faster. And moving faster means better play, in most sports at least. Soccer doesn't care about how we feel. It doesn't care what we say, but we do. And we get to choose what we say. And we know that when we choose what we say and we decide that we're going to manage our thoughts, that is going to affect our performance directly. So, is it horrible? If you want to stay there, start talking about it in that way. If not, find a way to look at things neutrally and factually. This is what it was. This is what I'm going to do the next time. And we'll all be better for it. And I'm going to start closing all of my tips with what my son says every day when he does the announcements at school. They say, have a great day or not. It's your choice. See you next week.